Hello and welcome to Trying Times. My name is Carmen, and if you're new here, then we're basically best friends now. And I just want to thank you for taking the time out to listen to this episode, okay? I really appreciate you, and I just wanted to say that. So today's episode is something that can be seen as a trying time for, I think, pretty much anyone and everyone. Today I wanted to talk a little bit more about seasonal depression, or otherwise known as seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. There's a lot to cover with the subject, and I just want to start by saying that I probably won't be able to get into it all because that's probably impossible, or you'd be sitting here for quite a few hours, but I'll try to cover the things that I think apply to me as much as possible. So to start, what exactly is seasonal depression / SAD? In some, this is basically known to be a type of depression specifically known to happen during certain times of the year, such as in the fall or the winter, since a lot of our days feel shorter and include a lot less daylight than we're used to. This can basically lead to a chemical change in the brain that has potential to lead to depression of varying degrees. And this is something that can be super minor for some, whereas it can be debilitating for others. I can honestly say for myself, this looks and feels very different every single year. So sometimes, in full honesty, it's shittier than other times. So whatever I mention in this episode, again, like I said, is what I experience, and it might be relatable for you, or it might introduce new things for you. I'm not sure, but hopefully it can be insightful in some ways. I think for a lot of us, it's colder and a lot snowier outside, at least where I am, because I'm in Canada. So that makes reverting into your home all that much easier. I know for me it does. And all I want to do when it's snowy out is just lay in bed and read. Naturally, that means obviously that I'm isolating to some degree, as I don't want to socialize. But the thing is that is something a lot of humans generally need. And then when you take that factor away, and it's already a physically darker time of year, it can put you in a really lonely and isolated place. Even if you're not alone and have close friends, a partner, or are really close to your family, it can still feel like a really lonely time. On the other hand, though, if you might not have close relationships or many relationships, this time of year can be really tough. And especially with the holidays coming up, things can feel the total opposite of festive, and that's something that a lot of people go through. For me personally, I look forward to the holidays because I feel fortunate enough to have many loved ones close to me, not far from me, and it functions as a thing to look forward to. And it's just a time I get to spend with family, friends, and my loved ones in general. So this is something that I want to get into a little bit more, as obviously it's one of the things I look forward to, but Christmas is just one of them. There are also so many other things that go on around the holidays, like little festive markets or special holiday film screenings, or even some baking classes. There's so much more than just those things, by the way. Those are just things coming up at the top of my head right now. But I want to say that even though I think it can feel scary, these are all things that can be done either solo or with a loved one, and it's always just something nice to do, and it gives you something to look forward to. So even if you're not particularly comfortable or feeling great around the holidays, that's something that you can kind of look to or plan to do for yourself, and it might actually be a surprise. You might actually really end up enjoying it. And I'll be honest, I'm trying myself to become more comfortable doing things in general just on my own. So the thought of going to a holiday type of event or themed place can feel pretty daunting because a lot of the time those places are filled with people accompanied by other people. But the thing I try to remember is that you can really benefit from being in your own company and in your own space. And I think learning to enjoy things in your own presence is super important because people don't really emphasize that a whole lot. And it's really, really important because it levels up things like your self-worth, your patience, your thought process. It can benefit you in so many different ways in general. So I've been trying to find more joy in that, and that process of learning to enjoy your time on your own. I think that's something that I'm beginning to appreciate a lot more than I did when I was younger. Because I think at that time, I didn't understand how important that was. And as a kid or a teenager, it's often like you don't spend a lot of time alone, or maybe you do, but it doesn't really always have the same impact as it might when you're older and have lived and learned through more things than you might have at that age. And that's obviously not to dismiss anyone or anyone's experiences, but I think it's just like, it's a whole other tangent in itself. But all this to say that doing things on your own can also be cool. it can be a cool thing too. It doesn't just have to be like you do things with other people or another person. And if you want to, that's totally cool too. There's nothing wrong with that. It's whatever works for you and whatever you feel like your life situation is at or whatever lifestyle you might be living. I think it's important to know that doing things on your own is cool too. But so on to some more things that I look forward to specifically this time of year. They don't have to be big things, by the way. I try to find joy in a lot of little things or in all the things that I can because it's so important. And I think it's easier some days than others, but it's important that you try either way. For instance, and I've said this so many times, but I love going to cafes and getting myself a warm drink. And I think doing this when it's cold out and when the days feel so much shorter is just so much more rewarding and it makes the day better. It feels a lot more joyful. I feel like being in that sort of atmosphere to me is relaxing. So I don't feel overwhelmed or stressed by it. It's a small but impactful thing I can do to make the day better. And this with a friend or on my own is fun either way. So it's something I just know always cheers me up. So that's one thing that I kind of keep in mind for this darker season. And then something I try to do a bit more is also make plans with either, again, a close friend, loved ones, or even yourself. Just because days are shorter and not as bright as they ideally can be, that doesn't mean you have to miss out on going out or, seeing friends or catching up or going to do something that you want to do. It doesn't mean you have to miss out on those things. So I feel like this helps me in a way because I get to, in my situation, if I'm planning to meet up with a friend, I get to see someone who means a lot to me. We get to catch up and talk about whatever we want. And I think in so many ways, that's like a welcoming space and it just makes the day better. And it gives you something to look forward to. Like seeing someone you love being around and spending quality time with them is never a bad idea or a bad time, so why not? And then on the other hand, I think if you're planning to do something that you want to go do on your own, that's never a bad idea or a bad time too. Like that's great. And I think making time for that is so important. One other thing I'll say is getting outside. And I'll start by saying I'm not out here skiing or snowboarding by any means, but something as simple as going for a walk is a huge deal. I think making sure you spend some time outside during this type of season is so important because, well, one, it's helpful to get fresh air and again, spend a bit of time outside since it can feel easier to stay indoors. But two, it gets you moving and that always helps. I feel with certain brain chemistry, it helps to make you feel better. It can actually lift your spirits. So even if it's freezing outside, I'll try to make it a point to go for a walk because it just helps me clear my head and it feels nice to be able to do that for myself. Now I have a puppy who literally needs to go outside many times in a day. So it's kind of a bonus for me because that means I get to spend more time outside. And so far it's been great. And that means doing something nice for him in addition to doing something nice for myself. So it's a win-win for the both of us. And of all of these things, I think it's important to know that it's not like you have to have this high intention set of feeling better after doing whatever you do, because that's not really ideal. I think having those expectations makes it a lot harder to enjoy things in the moment, but knowing that you have this little toolkit of things you can do when you feel like it, or even when you might need it, help to make this season go a lot smoother and make it a little bit happier. So for myself, I have a bunch of hobbies that could easily keep me sitting cuddled up in bed or inside if I wanted. But I know if I want to get out and hang out and feel better, then I can go to a cafe. I can hang out with a friend. I can go for a walk. And those are all just simple examples of stuff. There's so much more that you can do. And I really wanted to make this episode mainly because I feel like it's something that we all deal with, and I know that we all know it just happens but don't necessarily know how to deal with it. So I hope in some way, if this resonates with you, that you're able to feel less alone or feel like you were able to take something away from this that might actually help you feel better during this time. So yeah, that's all for me. If there's something that you find helpful or something that you find just helps you in general with getting through this darker season, please feel free to share that with me at the Trying Times Podcast on Instagram because I would love to hear from you and I would love to hear about it, and I could always use more tips for myself too. So please feel free to share that. And yeah, that's all. Again, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. We'll chat again soon, okay? Bye.